Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Good grief, it's worse than I thought. It's worse than we are surrounded. Totally, utterly surrounded by glittering jewels of colossal ignorance and absurdity. It's breathtaking to behold all of this. No. I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about the lockstep that everybody in the media is in. It is stunning. They all might as well be robotic pods being programmed by somebody. Every damn one of them has the same reaction to virtually anything in that debate last night that anybody's reacting to. It doesn't matter where you go. You could go to Fox, you go to CNN, you go to PMSNBC, you go to anywhere, and the reaction is identical. Is there not one human being in journalism today that has an independent thought about anything? Is there not a one of them paying attention to what's actually happening in this country and in this campaign? Is there not a one of them that understands why Donald Trump is a nominee? Is there not one of them that understands why he hasn't lost the election yet? Is there not one of them? Is there not a single person who has been paying attention since last June when Trump entered the race? Is there not a single person in the drive-by media anywhere that hasn't figured out who Trump is, what he does, and why he does it? Is there not a single person yet who has figured out that the way they measure the performance of politicians doesn't apply to Donald Trump? We only have over a year's worth of evidence. Every one of them. I don't care who you talk to. It doesn't matter who you read. It doesn't matter who you listen. Trump lost the debate last night. Wait a minute. I thought Trump lost the debate weeks ago. I thought Trump lost the debate in the first debate. I thought Trump lost the debate when he came down the escalator last June. Trump Tower announcing his candidacy. From the get-go, this guy has never had a chance. Every time he's opened his mouth, they almost in unison have said, that's it, he's finished, it's embarrassing, it's over. They're acting like last night Trump was winning. In order for them to have any credibility what they're saying about Trump's debate performance last night, you have to believe that they thought Trump was on the way to winning last night. But last night, he snatched defeat from the jaws of victory with one ill-timed comment that they're not even getting right. They're not even properly characterizing what Trump said in response to Chris Wallace's question. And you want some further irony on this? Let me give you the ultimate irony. So now we have everybody in the Clinton campaign, in the Obama White House, and everybody in drive-by journalism claiming that Trump is putting at risk the very foundations of our democracy and of our republic and our country. Donald Trump last night putting at risk the very existence of the United States and our transition of power tradition. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And why? Well, because he will not concede defeat. They wanted Donald Trump to concede defeat, just like they wanted the Republicans to take impeachment off the table, which they did. Last night, everybody wanted Trump to admit that he had lost the election last night. That's what they were going for. That's what they wanted today. That question, Chris Wallace said, Mr. Trump, will you pledge to accept the result? No. Why should I tell you? If he had accepted, if he would have announced last night that he was going to accept the results, the story today would be Trump conceded defeat last night. But here's the real point. Trump he did what he had to do. Trump's whole reason for running is wrapped up in his answer to that question last night. This is what I mean do they not understand why the guy's running? Do they not understand why the guy's got support? Do they not understand why millions and millions of Americans have invested in Trump to the point that they don't care about traditional political faux pas and they still hang with the guy? Do they not understand why to this moment? Do they not understand why? Or are they in unison somehow, all of them ignoring what they all know and trying to position this as something other than what it is? If Trump would have answered that question, yeah, sure, whatever happens, I'm cool with it. That his supporters would have been deflated, and that might have been the moment when some of them began to desert him. He had no choice, but I don't even think he consciously thought it was a choice. He was instinctively answering the question. And his answer is exactly why he's in this race. He's trying to wrest control of the country and the government from an elite cabal of establishment types who are trying desperately to hold on to it with everything they've got. It is a real fight. It is a real brawl. And Donald Trump got into it specifically knowing why and what he was doing. And for him to announce last night, oh, yeah, whatever you guys end up doing with this election, sure, I'll accept it. I'll announce right now I'll accept it. You know, here's the irony I was referring to earlier. This is the thing that I haven't heard anybody say this. What are the Democrats saying? You talked to Donna Brazile last night about the emails that that proved that she was passing questions on to Hillary. Those are stolen emails. Those are emails that's delivered by criminals. I'm not. I know what it is to be persecuted. I'm a Christian woman. You pick that stuff out of the gutter. I'm not answering it. I'm not. And virtually every explanation for what we are learning in the WikiLeaks document dump, they don't deny any of it. What are they saying? The Russians are trying to rig our elections. The Democrats are the ones caterwauling and whining and moaning about rigged elections every day. WikiLeaks, the Russians, Mrs. Clinton in the debate last night. I have never seen anything like this in American politics, where a foreign government is attempting to sabotage our election, dumping on the Russians for what? Trying to rig the election. So Trump says, no, I'm going to keep my options open. I don't know what's going to happen. The only sensible answer there is to that question. The Democrats, the whole debate, prior to the debate, whining and moaning about rigged elections because the Russians are trying to screw them, because the Russians are releasing emails that Podesta sent to everybody under the sun. So the Russians are what? Trying to cheat. Who is it that's alleging rigged elections? Who is it that's trying to diffuse the truth coming out about them by blaming it on the Russians, trying to rig elections? It's our good buddies and good friends, the Democrats, and their fellows in journalism. I mean, it's breathtaking to behold all of this. I think, given who Trump is and where he is and why he's where he is and what he hopes to do, I'm going to tell you something. I thought prior to this question, he blew so many opportunities again. I was telling Snerdley this morning, good Lord, she sent so many slow-pitch softballs right over the plate about his economic plan, about Obama's economic plan, about so many things, and his political instincts just are not there. He didn't realize what he had. It's not that he blew it. It's that, man, it could have been so much better and it could have been so much different. He had the chance to bury her last night by throwing her own words right back at her. Well, I'll give you one example was when she goes on and on and on about the economy and her economic plan and how she and Obama inherited the absolute worst economy in the history of economies back in 2008. And then she mentions all these experts who have looked at her plan and say that her plan's not going to add a single dollar to the national debt. Meanwhile, we only have a $20 trillion national debt because she and Obama have been running the show. And she goes on and on about how we just need to stay the course because we've got to. And all you have to say, you mean like we've been doing the last 8 years? It just didn't connect on things like that. Supreme Court halfway decent, ended up being pretty well because he mentioned the Constitution. We're going to dissect her answer. Her answer on the Supreme Court question last night was absolutely disqualifying, if you ask me, since we're talking about who's qualified and who's not. But I'm telling you, this question about accepting the results, thank goodness he kept to his instincts on that, because that's the reason he's running. That is the reason for his campaign wrapped up in one question and answer. Oh, yeah, we'll get into all the stuff about Gore in 2000 and Kerry in 2004 and all the evidence we have of the Democrats alleging cheating, alleging vote fraud, claiming and engaging in it. I mean, that's why this is so absurd, folks. The Department of Justice just announced that they're going to have a certain number of poll watchers on Election Day. Why? Why do we have to have election observers? If everything's on the up and up, and if there isn't any cheating, and if there isn't any fraud, why do we need to have election observers? And Obama brings in some from the UN to boot. So the Democrat Party and Hillary Clinton whine and moan like stuck pigs that the Russians are trying to steal the election from them, that the Russians are interceding in our elections, the Russians are doing this and the Russians are doing that, and it's unprecedented. Never before has a foreign country tried to impose itself on our... They're accusing and whining and moaning about election fraud. I'll tell you what. If Trump wins this, do you think they're going to docilely sit by and accept the results and start conceding all over the place? You think they're going to sit by and just accept it? Did they accept it in 2000? Gore conceded in 2000. Then he withdrew the concession and ended up not conceding until December. But these are the people worried about the fine traditions of our congressional Republican, representative Republican democracy and all this. The hypocrisy on this. It's really getting to be a lot to swallow. It's just overwhelming how many, we're talking hundreds of people, when you add up all these people in the media who spout the exact same thought. I'd be embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed if I were somebody in the media and I was saying something identical, almost word for word, that everybody else is saying. I'd be saying, I guess they don't need me. I sound just like everybody else. Anyway, folks, interested in your take on this as well. You know, there's a poll out, the Investors Business Daily TIP poll, and this poll happens to be the poll that got it right in 2012. This is the poll that called the Obama victory by 3.8 points, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. And in this poll, Trump is leading Clinton. This was ahead of the debate last night. And here's their story. After more than a week of blistering attacks from Democrats, celebrities, and the press, Donald Trump has managed to pull ahead of Hillary Clinton by 1 point, 41.3% to 40% in a four-way matchup. IBD/TIP has been the most accurate pollster in recent presidential elections. 2004, 2008, IBD-TIP had the smallest deviation from the certified results, and across the last three presidential races, IBD-TIP has the lowest average divergence. In the 2012 race, polling analyst Nate Silver, then of the New York Times, ranked 23 presidential polling organizations using his own methodology and called IBD-TIP the most accurate tracking poll for the year. Well, if Nate Silver says it, then that's biblical for the people on the left, and they've got Trump up by 1 before the debate last night. And if you listen to all these media people, they all say Trump won. They say Trump was off to the races. He won. Oh, man, he was kicking butt. Remember, I'm watching the post-debate analysis, and I'm a little bit shocked. Because no matter where I turn, they're all saying, there's some outliers on CNN, but for the most part, the consensus is that Trump had best debate ever, best night. And he blew it. He blew the election, that one answer. In that one, it was gone. I thought, actually, maybe I had missed 2 or 3 weeks of the campaign because these guys were acting like Trump was actually going to win the election last night until he answered that fateful question from Chris Wallace. And then he blew it all. So they've been telling us he's not got a prayer. He's going to lose in a landslide double digits. It's over. And then last night he has this question that he answers in a way they don't think is proper. And it's, well, he's blown it now. That's it. Donald Trump. What was he leading? Was he cruising to victory? And then that one answer has shattered everything. This is the way these people think. Trump's supporters were standing up and cheering at that answer. Now, the question is, well, that's right, Mr. Limbaugh, but what about the fact that Trump needed to reach out to independents and need to broaden his base? Of course, his supporters are going to applaud anything he does, Mr. Limbaugh, because they're robots themselves. But what about broadening his base? You know, you people had better... You better learn to ask yourself, this country's not going in the right direction, and a majority of people think so, or don't think so. And Hillary Clinton is not seen as a solution to anything. Hillary Clinton, if it weren't for the fact that she were married to Bill Clinton, nobody would know who Hillary Clinton is today. She wouldn't be anything. And by that I mean she's demonstrated nothing in her life that would overwhelmingly qualify her to be president. I have to take a break because of the constraints of the programming format and the clock, but we'll be back. Don't go away. I maintain to you folks that they are still paranoid and scared to death of Donald Trump in this campaign. And this reaction that they're all having to this is so out of proportion to what he said. All he said was, we're going to wait and see. It's a common sense answer to a question. The Democrat Party fights every attempt to take the rigging out of elections. If you want to go photo ID to vote, who stands in the way of that? The Democrat Party. The Democrat Party does not want photo ID because it's one of the greatest techniques to eliminate voter fraud we've devised, and they oppose it. Who stands in the way of purging dead people from the voter rolls? The Democrat Party. Who is it that is, as we speak, finagling in certain American cities, looking for a way to register illegal aliens to vote? It's the Democrat Party. Donald Trump is running in opposition to everything establishment. He is opposing the rigged nature of the entire game, not just elections. The rigged nature of the economy, the rigged nature of this or that. He's standing up to the establishment. He is advocating for fairness and equality and so forth. This is the same guy who refused at the first debate to sign the pledge to support the eventual nominee. So why should I do that? Remember, they all said that was okay, that's it. First debate, first question, Brett Baer. That's the end of Trump. They were shocked when the polls came out and Trump was skyrocketing ahead of everybody. They don't learn. They haven't yet taken the time, or maybe they have and just ignore it, to understand. I've been trying to tell them the connection that Trump supporters have with him and why they continue to try to apply standard political behavior to somebody who's never been in politics. And they're blowing it sky high, so out of proportion, it makes me curious. Welcome back, my friends. Great to have you. It's Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIB microphone here at the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Way to go, Snurdly. You've been paying attention. You send this up to the broadcast engineers. I thought when I heard this, wait, it can't be. This is like a Christmas present. This is a surprise, really cool Christmas present. That's thoughtful. That's considerate. That is really cool. Anyway, folks, telephone number is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. There isn't anybody. This is what is offensive to me about this over-the-top, out-of-proportion reaction. There isn't anybody who really thinks Donald Trump doesn't respect the traditions of America or American elections. There isn't a soul out there. This is people trying to convince low-information voters and others who aren't paying attention that Donald Trump is some alien from outer space who wants to blow up the greatest traditions of American elections and politics and so forth. Everybody that's going caterwauling about this knows full well Donald Trump does not intend to pollute and tamper. What Donald Trump is trying to do is stop that kind of thing that everybody knows is going on. Look at what Trump is up against. We have now learned from the Project Veritas videos that a known felon and husband of a Democrat congresswoman from Illinois, a guy named Robert Kramer, we know that this guy has been buying, paying, orchestrating, arranging protests at Trump rallies, hiring and paying homeless people and others to wear provocative T-shirts to go into Trump rallies and provoke fisticuffs. The Democrat Party, the Hillary Clinton campaign, has been trying to make it look like Trump supporters are unhinged, out-of-control, violent maniacs by buying and paying a bunch of maniacs to go in and provoke otherwise peaceful Trump supporters. James O'Keefe has them admitting this on videotape. The guy that runs the whole show, the husband of the Democrat congresswoman from Illinois, his name is Robert Kramer, has been at the White House 300 plus times and has met with Obama. It's either 42 or 47 times. The Hillary and Trump called them on this last night. Trump actually, in answering, why are these women coming forward? And why are you people trying to upset my right? Your campaign's doing it. And he looked right at her, and she didn't deny it. And it was the first time in my lifetime that any Republican has actually accused Hillary Clinton and the Democrat Party of doing things they are doing. Normally, the Republican Party announces that they're taking impeachment off the table. We are not going to impeach. And then after they say that, or even before they say that, Mitch McConnell announced going into this calendar year that they were not going to oppose any Obama policies. And you know why? Because they didn't want to cause problems for the eventual Republican nominee. They didn't want to make themselves look like the opposition party to the first African-American president. So you tell Obama, a guy who resents the limits the Constitution places on him to begin with, you tell him that we're not going to make any effort to keep you in check. We're not going to hold you to the Constitution. We're not going to use any remedy we have to keep you within the bounds of the law. What's he going to do? When you tell Obama, we are not going to oppose any of your policies, what is he going to do? Exactly what he's been doing. Executive orders here, executive orders there. Doing what he wants to do with his agencies and regulators outside of Congress. The Republican Party may as well not even exist in this calendar year. And Donald Trump's supposed to play along. He's supposed to answer a question debate last night. Yes, I will happily accept whatever the result is. Well, the Democrats aren't going to happily accept whatever, despite what they say. You watch. If they lose this, there is going to be such hell to pay. And meanwhile, they're out caterwauling about the Russians cheating. Trump has not said anything but he's going to wait and see what happens. Why in the world would Donald Trump or any Republican willingly throw away an opportunity to contest an election if evidence is forthcoming that's indicative that something is awry? Why would he throw that option away? Nobody with a brain would. And I'm just here to tell you that if Trump had answered the question the way all these caterwaulers think he should have, you know what the lead story today would be? Trump concedes defeat in final debate with Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump last night admitted that his chances are slim, and they're so slim and so remote that he's already accepted the likelihood of his defeat. That's the story. That's what they wanted to write. That's what they would be writing. Why should he give them that? This is one time where his instincts served him very, very well. All he said was, we're going to wait and see. Wait and see. And then there are two other things. He referred to some Mexican criminals, some bad hombres out there. Oh, they're flying off the handle about that. Oh, my God, this guy Trump is even worse than we thought. Bad hombre. And then he said, Hillary's a nasty woman. She is a nasty woman. Why are you not allowed to say that about her? Just because she's a woman? What happened to feminism? I thought there weren't any differences in men and women. She's a nasty guy. We could say it. Nobody would care a whit. Nasty woman. You can't say that. She is a nasty woman. The woman's wrong about practically everything she believes in. The woman is a walking policy disaster. We're not allowed to say so because she's a woman? Well, 3 cheers for feminism then. Ditto with Obama. It's a walking disaster. We're not allowed to say so because of his race. And you bet, exactly right, we're not supposed to nor be allowed to criticize Hillary because she's a woman, not supposed to hit the woman. That's sexism. With Obama, it's racism. I am tired of having these artificial methods used to shut people up, to shut up legitimate opposition. We're talking about the presidency of the United States here. This is not president of the student council or the school population. We're talking about president of the United States. For crying out loud, there are going to be policy disagreements. And the fact that we're not allowed to say so because she happens to be a woman. Look at what they can say about Romney. He's a tax cheat. He hates animals. He doesn't care about the wives of employees. Look what they can say about George W. Bush. Call him Hitler, all these things. Trump calls Hillary nasty. Oh, my God, instantly disqualifying. Trump's a reprobate. And then he said hombres. Some bad hombres out there. Well, they happen to be bad hombres out there, and she is a nasty woman. Look at what has been uncovered in the WikiLeaks dumps. The Secret Service agents assigned to her detail eventually ask off of it because she is rude, inconsiderate, mean, and lords over them like they are nobodies, and she's a queen. And we heard the same stuff about her when she was in the White House. The way she insulted uniformed Marines at the White House and Secret Service agent detail and throwing things in the White House at people. She is a nasty woman. Why can't this be said if it happens to be true? What I resent is that so many on our side seemingly want to participate in these efforts to shut us up. And so Trump doesn't play ball. So Trump now becomes the equivalent of the guy who made the video that supposedly caused all the havoc at Benghazi. All of this is why Trump is running. All of this is why Trump has support that cannot be separated from him. All of this is why I think they're still concerned. For people acting like Trump is already lost and it's in a landslide and he doesn't have a prayer, I've never seen so much angst. I've never seen people looking so stressed and pressured in the midst of what we're all told is a landslide victory. And the polls all say it's going to be landslide. Where's the happiness? If Trump screwed up so bad last night, why don't they laugh and celebrate? Why are they acting so offended? Ask yourself that. If Trump really screwed up, which is what they want, if Trump really ended his chances last night, why aren't they popping the champagne corks? Why aren't they throwing parties? Why aren't they making mock funerals and so forth, hammering fake nails into a fake coffin? Why are they acting so damned offended and outraged? Because a lesson must be learned to any of you who are not outsiders who try to challenge it. This is what will be done to you, too. Because none of this makes any common sense whatsoever within the bounds of human nature. Okay, you have a guy who's running for president and wants to change everything you believe in and everything you know, wants to blow up your whole life because you're a member of the establishment. And it looks like he's going to get beat in the biggest landslide in American history. This guy may get beat worse than Goldwater. Be happy. Run around and even gloat, but smile and talk about how Trump blew it and make yourselves likable and charismatic instead of running around like Trump has just made the biggest assault on life as it's ever been known. None of this makes any sense if everything else we're told is true. I mean, we're being Donald Trump. Donald Trump, whose fingerprints are not on anything, is being treated as the single greatest destructive force that has ever threatened this country. Does anybody find that way, way, way out of proportion? I do. And meanwhile, it's the Democrat Party and the Hillary Clinton campaign coordinating with the White House to sabotage this man's campaign. And it's on videotape, with them admitting it, admitting how they hire people, what they pay them, the instructions they give them, the T-shirts and clothing they are told to wear, so that they will likely incite otherwise peaceful Trump supporters. We have the WikiLeaks document dump, which tells us, all these John Podesta emails, what they really think of each other. We have the FBI investigation of Mrs. Clinton and her lawless behavior with her server and classified documents and data. And we know that she got a pass. She was exempted from the law when nobody else would be. Why should Trump not? Why should Trump willingly throw away one of the arrows in his quiver? Because, look, the die is cast. We know how these people operate. We know they stop. They try to stand in the way of any effort to clean up voting. They do everything they can to facilitate vote fraud. The only natural thing is to be suspicious of it. The unnatural, stupid thing would be to look the other way and deny what everybody knows, that they cheat and that they look for more opportunities to cheat. And they rig games. And now to hear them whining and moaning about the Russians rigging an American election while they complain about Trump's answer to a question last night, folks, something about this is way out of kilter in terms of them thinking they've got this election in the bag. They're just not acting that way. So Trump's in Ohio. I'm told he's on fire. He said, hey, I will accept the election results if I win. But he then said, why should I? Why I'm being asked to throw away and get rid of precedent that has existed in every election in this nation's history. I'm being asked to throw away my right to challenge things when we don't know what's happened yet. And he's exactly right about this, folks. Anyway, I want to go to the phones because people want to get in on this themselves. We're going to start in Brooklyn. James, great to have you, sir. Hi.
Thank you, Russ. It's great to finally get to talk to you. The thing I'm mad about the most is Fox News has been jamming Donald Trump down our throat for more than a year now. All of a sudden, last night, they turn on him. I'm watching Brit Hume now telling us, oh, this is the worst thing he could have did, was saying that. How can we sit there, like you said, and I said it earlier, that if there's discrepancies in the voting, we're supposed to just walk away. They're trying to discourage us. Everybody I'm talking is saying the same thing. We are not going to be discouraged. We're going. We're going to the polls no matter what. No matter what the polls say, we're going to vote no matter what.
Have you stopped to ask yourself why everybody, I don't care, you mentioned Fox, and it's true, it doesn't matter where you go. Literally everywhere, every TV network, every newspaper, every blog, website, you name it, the vast majority of people at every one of these places, this is the, oh my God, did Trump blow it? Oh my God, Trump has just thrown away hundreds of years of American election tradition. Oh my God. What makes them all agree and say the same thing? What makes them all purposely misinterpret what Trump said?
Well, there's two things about that. One thing is they're afraid of terrorism, and if they come out, like I said, and say bad things about terrorists, they're so full of themselves, they'll think the terrorists will come after them. You take an idiot like Bono and a jackass like Paul McCartney. They make a lot of money in this country. They don't bring their money back to Europe. They leave it here, so they feel that they should have a say in our politics because they pay taxes. So they come out and they say stupid things. I've heard Paul McCartney rip George Bush, saying what an idiot he is. Maybe we don't even know Obama's record in college because he had it sealed. The thing that worries me the most is what will happen the day after the election when we find out who wins, because we are not going to find out that night. What is Obama going to do the day after that? What executive?
Okay, now see, that is a legitimate thought for some people in this country to have. Everything about that's legitimate. Other people are going to characterize that's tinfoil hat conspiracy cookism. I can't believe it. Anyway, I must go, folks, because, again, of the constraints of time. Back with more in a moment. Yeah, I think that's the most offensive thing to me about this, is these people trying to say that Trump promised to blow up the country if he loses. It's not at all what he said. All he's doing is reserving the right to call for an investigation if it looks like some cheating went on in a close election. Everybody understands that, and they purposely try to distort this. It's unseemly. And we're back. Greetings, my friends. Great to have you with us. Rush Limbaugh behind a golden EIB microphone. And yet another excursion into broadcast excellence hosted by me, your guiding light through times of trouble, confusion, murkiness, tumult, despair, hypocrisy, out-and-out lying. All of that, and even the good times. I remain your guiding light. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Okay, Trump is in Delaware, Ohio, and he's continuing to tweak the media. Look, for those of you just joining us, I want to run through some things very, very quickly here again, at the risk of repeating myself for those who have been listening since the beginning of the program, top of the previous hour. This is so overblown, and it is so out of proportion. Because I'm here to tell you that I would wager that everybody acting so outraged over this knows full well that Donald Trump was not promising to blow up this country if he loses the election. He was not saying that at all. And for these people to try to characterize what he said in that fashion, they're the ones that have explaining to do, not Trump. Trump is simply behaving according to common sense. He couldn't have answered that question any other way. There's all kinds of cheating already going on, aimed at him. The Democrat Party from the White House on down to the Clinton campaign has tried to screw up his rallies, has tampered with things that have been portrayed as Trump protesters going off the rails and becoming unhinged. The WikiLeaks email dump of John Podesta shows coordination at the highest levels of the Democrat Party to engage in chicanery and other kinds of cheating and fraud, and they openly strategize about it. In a way, it kind of makes you jealous when you read how organized these people are. And when you realize our side doesn't have anything like this. They don't leave anything to chance. And the reason they don't leave anything to chance is because they know they're in the minority. They still are in the minority, so they have to do everything they can to mischaracterize us and their opposition and impugn and destroy. And classic is what they're doing here with Trump and his answer to that question last night, whether he would accept the results. These people are already, we know they're meeting at the White House to discuss and plan efforts to upend Trump personal appearances. We know, you go back to 2000 and the Bush-Gore election. You know, these people are trying to portray themselves as clean and pure as the wind-driven snow, and whatever happens, they accept it, no questions asked. Well, in 2000, George Bush beat Al Gore in Florida, and Al Gore conceded. And then somebody said, no, wait, Gore, maybe not. So Gore withdrew his concession, and then we had a recount start that went on until December, with Al Gore and Bill Clinton both maintaining that election had been stolen from them, that election had been rigged, and for the next 8 years they treated George W. Bush as an illegitimately elected president. They didn't let it go, ever. They used his illegitimate victory in Florida, and they blamed that on the Supreme Court. They said the Supreme Court was rigged. They accused the Supreme Court of being rigged for Bush. They accused the state of Florida for being rigged for Bush. They didn't accept that result ever. It's one of the reasons they couldn't ever let go of their hatred for George W. Bush. Because once the recount started, that's when they thought they would prevail. That's when they thought they knew best how to win by cheating. And they weren't able to pull it off. They had a very helpful Florida State Supreme Court, which kept giving them opening after opening after opening to keep counting, even after it was established that Gore did not have the votes in Florida. They wanted time to re-examine hanging chads and try to change votes, and finally the U.S. Supreme Court shut them down, and they're running around like stuck pigs. The Democrat Party, top to bottom, running around like stuck pigs, claiming they had been cheated. The election was illegitimate. George W. Bush was illegitimate. And for 8 years, everything Bush did was illegitimate. And they used the Florida recount as the basis for their opposition to Bush. And they had every American they could possibly convince thinking Bush was illegitimate. The damage these people have done to this country is unquantifiable. They engaged in efforts to sabotage the Iraq War, to sabotage the war on terror. They've done everything they can to sabotage the U.S. economy. They ruined and destroyed the life of General Petraeus. Before he even testified, they called him a liar. And Hillary Clinton was right in there, running an ad calling him General Betrayus. Yes, sirree, the angelic Mrs. Clinton, who is in truth Nurse Ratched, along with her husband and Al Gore and everybody else in the Democrat Party, running around delegitimizing everything that happened in the George Bush presidency. Doesn't matter what it was, because he was illegitimate. They wouldn't let it go. And for these people and the people in the media to be running around Donald Trump poses the problem when we're still living through the nightmare and the ramifications of the Democrat Party refusing to accept the legitimacy of the 2000 election. Do not doubt me. It is what they still use. Michael Moore is still out there making lying documentaries like Fahrenheit or whatever it was, 9/11. Republicans even participated in that just for the chance to be in a movie. Yes, it was so cool. Never mind the fact the whole point of it was to establish that Bush and everything about him was a liar and unqualified, disqualified, illegitimate. It's still causing ramifications in our politics today. They will not let it go. They did not let it go. And this is why I am so righteously indignant. I really am, over the way they're mischaracterizing Trump's answer to the question when the behavior is already on the books and continues to this day by them. It is, I can, all the adjectives you want to come, unconscionable, unacceptable. But it frosts me that the hypocrisy and the unison of everybody in the Washington establishment acting like Donald Trump poses the greatest threat we've ever had to our great democracy. These people pose a threat to it. They're trying to transform it, for crying out loud. The modern-day Democrat Party is itself trying to unravel and transform the founding of this country. And they are doing it having not been elected to do it. And well over half of the fundamental transformative changes happening in this country are being forced on the American people. They didn't vote for it. A bunch of unelected bureaucrats issuing anonymous regulations that are imposing burden after burden on small business and humanity in general, and just everyday ordinary people, impacting their freedoms and reducing them. Political correctness is running rampant. People afraid to tell you what they really think about anything. Donald Trump blows it to smithereens, and look what happens when you do. They set out to destroy you. And all the while, they get to occupy the perch of cleanliness and purity. They are the protectors. They are the guarantors of all that is precious and virtuous in this country. Be freaking S. They are the exact opposite. These are the people systematically tearing down the traditions and institutions that have defined this country's greatness. And finally, somebody has decided to stand up and fight back against it. And that's not acceptable. So we have to lie about what he says, mischaracterize what he says, and start acting like a bunch of stuck pigs over it. You would think that Donald Trump had promised to start a civil war last night. Does anybody think that's what he said? He was simply reserving the right. And by the way, intelligence guided by experience. These people stand in the way of every effort to reduce fraud, to eliminate fraud in elections. They oppose every effort. Photo ID is the greatest example. A photo ID. Everybody must have a photo ID to vote. No, can't do it. You know why? Racism. Yes, African Americans are afraid to get a photo ID because they're afraid it's going to be used against them and their welfare will be taken away or whatever is going to happen. I don't even understand it. But they've got, Reverend Jackson and all these people running around. Photo ID is the epitome of racism and it's a violation of Voting Rights Act. I mean, every time they open their mouth, it's a violation of Voting Rights Act. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice is going to reduce the number of poll observers. Why do we have poll observers if there's no fraud? Why do we have poll observers if every election is clean and pure as the wind driven snow? Why do we have observers in the UN? Obama, Jimmy Carter, all these clowns bring in election observers in this country as though we're a third world country. Why? If our elections are so above board and only Donald Trump threatens them, why? And then the new Black Panthers, don't forget we had legitimate vote fraud at a polling place in Philadelphia. The DOJ drops the case because Eric Holder says we're not going to pursue people of color on my watch. No, people of color have a little bit of leeway here to behave illegally because they've been so mistreated in the previous years that to make up for it, we're going to let them have some leeway. So we're not going to prosecute them for intimidating people who wanted to vote in Philadelphia. I mean, the evidence is all over the place that the Democrats do everything they can to stop any serious effort at cleaning up vote fraud. Ask the Democrats to purge voter rolls, to get rid of people who have died. The sanctity of the voter rolls must not be tainted by the American political system. All right, so we can't purge dead people, so we must obviously still want dead people to vote. You got Florida 2000, we got JFK 1960. They counted dead people. They needed whatever number of votes they could get in West Virginia and Illinois to put JFK over the top. We know that it goes on. That's what's so ridiculous and outrageous about this hysterical, out of proportion reaction that we are getting from seemingly everybody that has anything to do with politics, media, commentary in New York, Washington, and Boston. It's just, it's breathtaking to watch this. The unison, the similarity, the identical words that everybody's writing or speaking. And just one more observation again. They're acting like Trump had this election won. Folks, don't misunderstand me here. The reaction to Trump that they're having over his lack of proper answer to that question last night, they're saying Trump blew it. Well, that's it. I mean, Trump is thrown in the way now. Well, I thought he had no chance anyway. I thought going into the debate last night it was over. I mean, they cite their polls that show Trump down 10, down 11, down 12. He doesn't have enough time left. He's a reprehensible guy. He doesn't have any opportunity to win this. It's over. And then all of a sudden he answers the question the wrong way, and they're acting like he was going to win until he did that. None of this, if you follow it logically, follows. It doesn't make sense until you understand who they are, what they're doing, and how. Okay, we have sound bites from Trump in Delaware, Ohio. He's still tweaking them. He said, I don't want to be misunderstood. I promise I will accept the results of the election if I win.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to make a major announcement today. I would like to promise and pledge to all of my voters and supporters and to all of the people of the United States that I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Somebody call paramedics. Somebody get hold of the first responders. They call 911. The media's having vapors. They can't believe it. He's even joking. This man's ego is so out of control. He's even joking about something as precious as our election and results. No sense of humor. No understanding at all of how Trump connects with his supporters. None. No understanding of that at all. That's the thing that really, really makes me laugh. After over a year, they still don't know why Trump supporters support him. Or if they do, they're just in a state of denial. He then laid out the corruption that he knows and we've all learned about in this campaign.
John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, was quoted in WikiLeaks as saying, illegal immigrants could vote as long as they have their driver's license. What I'm saying is don't be naive, folks. Don't be naive. One of the big issues that came up last night was the fact that the Clinton campaign has paid people to disrupt violently our rallies and to incite absolute total bedlam. This is criminal behavior that violates centuries of tradition of peaceful democratic elections. A campaign like Clinton's that will incite violence is truly a campaign that will do anything to win.
By the way, something I noticed last, she didn't deny any of this. All she said was, it's the Russians. It's the Russians. The Russians are trying to steal our election. The Russians are trying. I've never seen it before. The Russians have released these emails, and it's not fair. It's not right. People bitching and moaning at Trump are actually at the same complaining about a rigged election. And it's the Russians doing it. It's Putin. If I'm Putin, man, I got to be having a time of my life. I'm sitting there in the Kremlin smoking a cigar, having some vodka, and I'm watching the American Democrat Party give me credit for screwing them up. Yeah, the Russians are interceding in the American election. The precious American election has never happened before. They don't deny anything. Hillary didn't deny it when Trump even accused her of being behind all these imaginary women that came forward and said Trump was grabbing them and doing this and that to them. Didn't deny any of it. Didn't deny what was in the WikiLeaks. Just and Donna's Brazil. That stuff was produced by a criminal. I'm used to being persecuted. I'm not answering that. For once, these people are having to deal with the stuff they dish out. And there are a lot of people celebrating that. There are a lot of people on Trump's side applauding that. It's worth it for that alone. Now, I mentioned earlier that anybody in their right mind knows that Donald Trump was not promising a civil war. He was not promising to blow up the country. He was not promising to not accept the results if he lost. And these people know it, folks. The people stirring this up know full well. And I know this because I know how they really know things I say when they act totally outraged and make a big 2-week deal out of various things. They know. And here is Trump demonstrating it. This is from today in Delaware, Ohio. And this, you can't say it any better. This is exactly what he means.
I was asked a question about whether I would agree in advance to concede the results on election night if for some reason we should lose, which we're not going to lose. And that was sort of an unprecedented question. If Al Gore or George Bush had agreed 3 weeks before the election to concede the results and waive their right to a legal challenge or a recount, then there would be no Supreme Court case and no Gore versus Bush or Bush versus Gore. And there have been numerous other cases. In effect, I'm being asked to waive centuries of legal precedent designed to protect the voters. Of course, I would accept a clear election result, but I would also reserve my right to contest or file a legal challenge in the case of a questionable result.
Of course. Why should he concede that? Why should he foreclose that? Why should anybody running against the Democrats foreclose that? Given what has already happened in this cycle. given what we've learned from the Project Veritas videos of James O'Keefe, given what we've learned from the WikiLeaks email dumps consisting of things from John Podesta. Smart thing to do. Okay, we're going to get back to the phones and steadily in just a moment. I just have to make one or maybe two more observations. First place, let's go to 2004 and the presidential election between John Kerry, who once served in Vietnam, the haughty John Kerry, and George W. Bush. George W. Bush running for re-election. The Democrats still had not accepted the legitimacy of the recount in Florida in 2000. Bush was an illegitimate president conducting an illegitimate war in Iraq that they had all voted for the first time around. This is another thing keeps popping up. I want to give you the history on the vote for the Iraq War. The first time the vote came up, the vast majority of Democrats voted against the authorization of the use of force. After Bush had spent a year and a half, folks, traveling the country, making speeches, appearing at the UN, assembling a coalition. He didn't ramrod anything down anybody's throat. Spent a year and a half building up support. The first vote in the Congress, in the Senate, 72 Democrats, well, the majority of Democrats voted against it, except Hillary Clinton. She voted for it the first time. Public opinion polls came out showing that people were livid at the Democrats for not supporting the president in a retaliatory effort for the war on terror in 9/11. Whether it was Iraq or Afghanistan, people wanted butt kicked, and the Democrats said no. So the Democrats asked for a second vote. They asked for a second vote, and on the second vote, they unanimously voted for the use of force authorization in Iraq. This is after they had blown themselves up with the Wellstone Memorial in 2002. Hillary Clinton again voted for the war in Iraq. Starting in 2004, the Democrat Party began to undermine it, tried to sabotage it for political purposes, and that was part of the theory of the John Kerry campaign. That Bush didn't know what he was doing, but Kerry did. He'd served in Vietnam. He'd run the Swift boats. He'd done all this great stuff. He'd come back and thrown his medals across the White House fence because he was so opposed to what big government does, committing young kids to war, doesn't care about it. It's a whole big rigmarole. Kerry loses in 2004, but let's remind ourselves of exactly what happened. The first wave of exit polls hit at about 5 p.m., between 4 and 5 p.m. on Election Day in 2004, and the first wave of exit polls showed that Kerry was going to win. And Bob Shrum, who was the campaign manager for Kerry, walked into Kerry's office waving that first batch of exit polls and said, "May I be the first to congratulate you, Mr. President." So starting at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, Election Day 2004, the Democrats thought John Kerry had won based on exit polling. And then the polls closed, and the real votes began to be counted. And it was obvious very early in the evening that John Kerry was not going to win, that the exit polls were not accurate. And in fact, we found out some weeks later that the exit polls had been rigged, they had been tampered with by virtue of exit pollers lying about what they had done in the ballot box. And we came to find out that the false reporting of exit polls, by the way, that's not supposed to happen. The exit polling data in terms of actual candidate preference, that data is not to be released or discussed on TV in the media until the polls close in the Eastern times in the states where the data is being discussed. The Democrats blew that to smithereens. They started discussing. They didn't give actual numbers, But they let it be known. It was all over Fox News. It was over. I remember a bunch of Bush supporters being depressed as hell because the media was reporting, looks like exit polling data, looks like that's it for George W. Bush. We can say and project early here that it looks like it's going to be John Kerry. And this was basically ABC, CBS, NBC doing this. You want to talk about rigging? I mean, they were lying. They were using exit poll results to try to suppress voter turnout among people at 5 in the afternoon who still hadn't voted in the Eastern, Central, and Western time zones, and Mountain time zone, obviously. They used they used incorrect exit polling data to try to impact votes that had yet to be cast. They didn't give numbers. You know, when you watch election coverage on election night, they have always, a network has some anchor or reporter assigned to tell you the exit polls. And there's only one exit poll, and every network and every news agency gets the same data. They all have the same data. They all combine and pay for one company to do exit polling. So it doesn't matter what you watch, the exit poll data is the same. They can interpret however they wish. So if you're watching, you'll recall that they'll tell you, well, it looks like women broke in Massachusetts with John Kerry. It looks like women under the age of 45, but older than 21, all this demographic crap. But the one thing they don't tell you is how the state actually voted. They wait till the polls close. But in 2004, they didn't wait for the polls to close. Well, when the actual votes started being tabulated and reported, it was clear that Kerry wasn't going to win, and the Democrats were fit to be tied. And on social media, they were blowing up. And it got to the point where some in the Democrat Party actually wanted to accuse the election and election officials in the Bush campaign of rigging the election because the exit polls showed that Kerry won. And when you start counting the real polls, they show that we lose. So they wanted to believe the exit polls were right. The exit polls are not even votes. They wanted to assert the exit polls were correct and the actual votes were fraudulent. The Democrat Party, the very same people bitching, whining, and moaning about Trump last night, in 2004, accused the real vote of being illegitimate because the exit polls said something different. And then, to add insult to injury, John Kerry accused Ohio of chicanery because I can remember him saying, you know, a swing of 50,000 votes and I would have won Ohio and I would be president. Yeah, a swing of 50,000 votes. And so the meme, the narrative was established that Ohio was fraudulent. And who did that? Your beloved, precious, clean and pure as the wind-driven snow skunks, the Democrat Party. That's why I get so livid when I hear these people act like some great offense in our traditions occurred last night with Trump and his refusal to accept and concede defeat last night by people who refuse it themselves. 2000, 2004, and from 2000 to 2008, trying to say everything that the Bush administration did was illegitimate because his election was illegitimate because of the Florida recount. And they still haven't let go of it. So my patience, I've worn out, folks, trying to be tolerant and understanding. These people are not who they say they are. They are not the way the media portrays them. And you can make book on the fact that when they start complaining and whining about something, you can be sure they're the ones who are actually engaging in the activity that they are accusing us of engaging in. Phone calls are next till we get back. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones here. Rush Limbaugh, talent on loan from God. And this is Chris in Pleasanton, California. Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi, Russ. I think this lockstep reaction of the media to that question of Trump accepting the results is a huge mistake by them and an opportunity for Trump to handle right. And here's why. When he speaks about things being rigged, there's really two parts to it. One involves possible fraudulent voting, But the other part of that rigged equation is the media being so incredibly dishonest and almost fraudulent. And so with them making an issue of him not accepting the results, it almost throws, as you said earlier, it throws a focus onto this undercover tape where fraud, the first part of the rigged, is actually, it's a smoking gun evidence of it. As you said, a man that was in the White House over 300 times, met with Obama over 40 times. He and his co-conspirator are on tape, confirming the fraud, detailing how they did it, and confirming the connection to the Hillary campaign and the White House. So that's one part of it. But the other part, equally damning, is the truth that the media doesn't even deem that worthy of a mention. To say nothing of 24/7 around the clock, pundit, analyzing and breaking it up. It throws the spotlight on both sides.
That's true. That's true. In fact, I saw O'Keefe the other day. He was expressing shock that the media wasn't covering his video.
Exactly.
I said, really? You're shocked by this? I mean, there's no way, James, they're going to cover this. There's no way under the sun they're going to cover this.
Their best defense against WikiLeaks and whistleblowers and the truth coming out is to ignore it. And by making an issue of how Trump responded to that question, they're almost forcing a spotlight onto that video and the fact that they don't cover it. They're going to have to now cover it more and even better have to defend themselves for not covering it previously.
Well, maybe. I mean, they may be forcing attention on a video. Trump did call attention to the video, but he didn't call it Project Veritas. He called it the clips. He said, you've seen the clips. And the low information people think that clips are things you jump off of when you're going to commit suicide. He don't know what they mean. Clips? What clips? So if you knew about Project Veritas, then you knew what Trump was talking about. But he didn't identify it. He just said the clips. He said the clips. So the clips are in the clips where? People, what clips? What clips? So it might make them curious to find it. I think what it does, however, and I'm not going to say this is the result of a brilliantly conceived, flawlessly executed plan, but by focusing on Trump, refusing to go along with this, they're actually playing into Trump's strengths. This is why Trump won the nomination. Things like this, refusing to bow down, grab the ankles, and take whatever the establishment demands or throws at you, but instead fighting back against it. And refusing to abide by their rules and their conventional wisdom, which is rigged against him. It is focusing attention on him, and I'm telling you that even people who are, we're told, predisposed to hate the guy, he's dominating a news cycle again. And they think that if they can portray him as lunatic, bad, whatever, that dominating a news cycle is actually good for Hillary. But I think things like this actually are the kind of things that backfire, or have the potential to backfire. There were some flash polls after the debate last night, and they were supposedly from scientific outfits, not websites where you could punch in your vote numerous times, but supposedly scientific sites. Every one of these things, Clinton was said to be the winner of the debate. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I don't presume, my ego is not such that I believe everybody sees it the way I do when I watch anything, a debate or anything, any event. I thought Trump, once again, just missed a whole bunch of opportunities to bury her last night. And he missed them because he's not a politician and he's not instinctively oriented toward the ideological explanations that undergird Hillary's policies. Like this, her economic plan is the biggest sitting duck to be blown to smithereens. You could do it in 2 sentences. But he didn't go there for, I don't know why. So I was cringing a lot that, another opportunity missed. One of those evenings where I was saying, damn, I wish I was there. And if I was there, I was. But everybody does that. And when you are there, it's not the same as when you are watching, thinking you're going to be there. But here's the second thing. I thought she looked not good last night. When she started speaking, I looked at Catherine. I said, there's something wrong here. And it's not her eyes. Her eyes were dancing a little bit, if you know to look for that. Her voice seemed to be really weak. She didn't seem to be projecting well. She didn't seem imbued with a lot of confidence. I caught her glancing down at her podium frequently. She looked unsure. She looked pasty. Somebody at the Fox Business Network claims that some technicians in the control room were monkeying with the color and contrast on Trump's face to make him look pale and pasty instead of orange. But I know the smile. The smile was a Nurse Ratched smile. Everybody saw the smile. I'm talking about other things. I actually thought watching this might be the night where she doesn't make it all the way through. It wasn't one thing. It was a series of things. She didn't look energetic. She didn't look loaded for bear. And it wasn't that it was purposeful. I didn't detect it as a strategy to lay back and let Trump own this and step in it and kill himself. I didn't look at it as she's in a prevent defense. I saw her pasty. I thought wearing white. You ought to see the drive-bys talking about that, by the way. They're all shocked that she wore white after Labor Day. Do you know that in proper circles, it is taboo to wear white after Labor Day? Except for those of us in Florida, because every day is after Labor Day and every day is before Labor Day. But when you live in the Northeast and you go to the Hamptons and places, the white gets back in the closet after Labor Day and you don't wear it. But then they gave her a pass because she looked so good and so pure in it. But they were worried that she was violating a fashion tenet. But I actually thought this might be the debate where she doesn't make it standing up all the way through. And I think it was close. I really think it was close last night, based on the way she looked in that airplane when she got... By the way, folks, did you hear last night Hillary Clinton announced to the world that it takes America 4 minutes to spin up and launch nuclear weapons? Did you hear her say that? Have you ever heard any president admit this? Much less a potential president, a former Secretary of State. Have you ever heard anybody tell our nuclear enemies how long it takes us to spin up a nuclear launch? 4 minutes. You want to talk qualified irresponsible? Ha! Her you. So there's McCain. I just saw a statement from McCain. This degree of purposeful dishonesty is getting really, really tough stomach. And we've been putting up with this for 30 years, folks. There isn't a person in the media or in the Republican Party, and if they're telling you otherwise, they're not being honest with you. There isn't a person in the world who thinks Donald Trump last night said that he will not concede if he loses. There's not a single person who thinks that's what he said. And McCain's on saying, I lost in 2008. I didn't want to lose. But I did. And so I called up and I said, I lost. You're my president. I am not happy with what I lost. It's not the Republican way. It's not the Democrat way. It's the American way. And it's the way it's always done. Well, Mr. McCain, Senator McCain, if you had found widespread evidence of voter fraud, what would you have done? We don't know. Probably caved anyway. The name of the party is Cave. Nickname Republican Cave Party. Hell, I don't know. This degree here of coordinated outrage, mock outrage. This is all phony baloney, plastic, banana, good time, rock and roll outrage. They are privately, secretly gleeful because they think they've got a story where they can say, Trump's such an idiot. Look at how he stepped in it. He's not qualified. He doesn't deserve to be president. He won't even admit that he's going to lose. He won't even admit that he is losing. He won't even admit that if he loses, he lost. That's not what he said. With so much evidence of widespread cheating on part of the Democrats that has already impacted Trump, he would be a fool just like the Republicans were fools, to take impeachment off the table, and for Mitch McConnell to promise Obama, you know what, we're not even going to oppose you in calendar year 2016 because we don't want to goof it up for our nominee. I guess they thought it was going to be Jeb. And so they thought they were doing great things by not opposing Obama, that the American people are going to really appreciate the Republicans. Yes, look, they're not even going to do politics. They're not even going to oppose Obama. I guess we should elect Jeb. That's the thinking. Now, if you're Obama, you're sitting, my God, I can't believe what idiots these people are. They're telling me that I've got green lights and blue skies and an unobstructed view of the future, and they're not going to stop me. What am I going to do? And he's doing it. Okay, I got sound bites I got to look. I could spend the rest of the hour venting on this because I still, folks, even with all I've said, I haven't yet gotten to the meat of the bone on this. I'm so livid about this. But my better instincts are telling me to rein it in at this point because I'm very, very close to being near the boundaries of profanity, and I refuse to go there. It's a family show. I'm just tired. All of this is an insult to all of our combined intelligence. Here we go. This is Donna Brazile, a paragon of virtue. Oh, Donna Brazile, part of the Democrat National Committee that helped rig the game against poor old crazy Bernie. And this we know. Was it the Russians? Yes, we think it was the Russians who unearthed the fact that Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz and Hillary were working together to screw Bernie Sanders. They didn't even deny it. Blabbermouth Schultz had to quit. Brazile is accused in the WikiLeaks document dump of sharing debate questions with Hillary Clinton. Something we can totally believe would happen. Because they're not confident of Hillary in any public appearance. So Megyn Kelly, who herself joined in the unison of can't believe what an idiot Trump is last night, eventually left it and went to Donna Brazile and hammered her. It was redemptive of sorts. And we have a couple of sound bites here. Set this up. It's after the debate. Megyn Kelly, Fox News, talking to the current chairwoman of the Democrat National Committee, Donna Brazile, about the WikiLeaks release of hacked emails that shows she received a debate question for a Democrat primary debate in advance of the event and found a way to share it with Hillary, with the campaign. Megyn Kelly says, you were accused of receiving you've got to hear her answer on this, by the way, if you can follow it. It's a lot of noise. It's in the pink room there after or what do they call it? Green room, spin room. But you've got to hear this woman. You've got to try to, this is classic in how they obfuscate, deflect, deny. It's a seminar in and of itself. So she says, you were accused of receiving a debate question before a CNN town hall where they partnered with TV One. Then you had this question on March 12th. The verbatim was provided by Roland Martin to CNN the next day. So really, the allegation is not that she got the question from CNN, that she got it from Roland Martin, who used to work at CNN and is now laboring away in obscurity at something called NY1. I think they found Roland in the black hole that Don Lemon was looking for the Malaysian Flight 370. And they gave him his own show when they found him in the black hole. So here is Brazile's answer to this.
Well, Kelly, since I play straight up, and I'll play straight up with you, I did not receive any questions from CNN. Let's just be
Where'd
very
you get it?
clear.
Where did you get it?
First of all, what information are you providing to me that will allow me to see what you're talking about? Everybody
You got the WikiLeaks released on March 12th Podesta email showing you messaging the Clinton campaign with the exact wording of a question asked at the March 13th CNN TV1 town hall debate.
Kelly,
where did you get it?
As a Christian woman, I understand persecution, but I will not sit here and be persecuted because your information is totally false. What you're telling the American people... I'm getting it from Podesta's email.
Well,
Podesta's emails were stolen. You're so interested in talking about stolen
material. So you deny it.
You're like a thief that want to bring into the night the things that you found.
You're like a thief. You want to bring into the night the things that you found. It was stolen. The Russians did it. It was stolen. Kelly, it was stolen. What does she think? What's her name? Is Kelly Megan? Kelly, I'm telling you, as a Christian woman, I know what it is to be persecuted. It was stolen. Where you get it? Or where I can't see it. Where you get it? You got it into the night. This classic. So, Kelly then says, okay, well, who gave you the question?
Megan, once again, I've said it, and I've said it on the record, and I'll say it on the record, and I'll keep saying it on the record. I am not going to try to validate falsified information. I have my documents. I have my files. And as I've said repeatedly, CNN, in the 14 years I was associated with CNN, I've never received anything. I never get documents from CNN.
In that email, you offered the exact question that one of the moderators, Roland Martin, then proposed the next day.
I can only tell you one thing, because as you know, this whole episode is under criminal investigation. A lot of those emails, I would not give them the time of the day. I've seen so many doctored emails.
I see so many doctored emails in the middle of the night, persecution, and I haven't seen them, but I've seen a lot of them, and I don't know what you're talking about. It's just, it's classic. I mean, you've got all the built-in defensive techniques. As a Christian, I understand persecution. It's stolen. It was in the night. It's under investigation. You're thieving me, and you're demanding I can't even see what you got, Kelly. So that's when. Now here's Trump. This really set him off. This was in the debate. Chris Wallace, why is your immigration and border security plan, Mr. Trump, why is it better than your opponents?
We have some bad people in this country that have to go out. We're going to get them out. We're going to secure the border. And once the border is secured, at a later date, we'll make a determination as to the rest. But we have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
They're having a cow. We got some bad hombres here. And that supposedly, you know, this social media has now apparently accrued this status of unimpeachability. If something happens on social media, I guess it's gospel, and it is the new conventional wisdom. And if on social media there is rampant offense over Trump using there because some bad hombres out there, then Trump becomes a reprobate again. A sexist, a bigot, a misogynist. All of these things, because we got some bad hombres out there. This is the kind of talk that endears him to average, ordinary people who talk this way, and furthermore, understand it. Now, there was a part of the debate last night that I was privately, right on, celebrating it, because it's a point that I have been making for many, many, many moons here on this program. And Trump, I think, used it the second time he's used it in these debates. And last night was the most effective. It was a segment about their economic plans. And after Clinton says that she plans to make it easier for businesses to use American-made products, Trump said this.
I ask a simple question. She's been doing this for 30 years. Why the hell didn't you do it over the last 15, 20 years? And you do have experience. I'd say the one thing you have over me is experience, but it's bad experience because what you've done has turned out badly. For 30 years, you've been in a position to help. And if you say that I use steel or I use something else, I make it impossible for me to do that. I wouldn't mind. The problem is you talk, but you don't get anything done, Hillary.
So you got pretty close. The point is that here she is running on all these ideas. she's going to do this and she's going to do that. She's going to fix this. She got a plan for the kids. She got a plan to get rid of kids in the 9th month of pregnancy. She's got a plan here. Everything. She's going to massive new economic plan. Not going to add a penny to the national debt, while Trump's will add $20 trillion to the national debt. She once again runs down, trickle down. We've tried it. Tax cuts to the rich. All he would have had to say last night, could you tell me why you're worth $20 million for 2 years of speeches to banks? Why? Anyway, so his point is, you have been promising for 30 years to do all this stuff. And here we are 30 years since you started, and you're still complaining that the same things need fixing. Why haven't you been effective? And what she does, she always pivots and goes back to the Children's Defense Fund. Well, I started working in the 1970s for women and children, the Children's Defense Fund. And, of course, it's supposed to, that's magic. You're supposed to question nothing further after that. Mrs. Clinton cares about women. Mrs. Clinton cares about children. Yeah. And then he nailed her on this partial birth abortion. You realize there is no Republican candidate that's had the balls to go after any Democrat on that issue face to face like he did with her last night? Never. It has never happened. Even though the Republicans may be loyally pro-life, they still, they pull back. But he just took it to her about, he turned the abortion. Let me ask you a question. When Chris Wallace asked this abortion question, didn't you people start cringing? Oh, no, geez, every time this comes up, we get smoked. Oh, my God. And he turned it to partial birth abortion on a dime, which was either brilliant or instinctive or a combination of the two, because she had no defense for what he was alleging, and she didn't even try. Her only defense, when he brought up, they want to rip babies out of the womb a day before they're born, a week before they're born, and she doesn't deny it. All she can say is, I have seen these women. I have met these women, and I'm telling you it is one of the hardest things. I'm telling you it is one of the most difficult things. And she's, therefore, on record as supporting partial birth abortion last night. And I will guarantee you that's the last thing anybody on the Democrat side ever factored would happen. That's why she wasn't prepared for it. And it was, I don't know, as I say, either brilliant or instinctive or a combination of the two. But to take that question on abortion, which has traditionally been a nail in a coffin for a Republican candidate, turn that around to a winning issue for him, a losing issue for her. And you'll note that nobody in the drive-bys is talking about that exchange. They don't want to go anywhere near it. And then she lied about Planned Parenthood and all these mammograms they do and all these pre-cancer. They don't do a single mammogram, folks. They do not do them. They don't do checks for cancer. Their solution to everything at Planned Parenthood is an abortion. She lied through her teeth. I don't know if Trump knows that or not. Most people, great work, mammograms, care for women. They don't do anything of the sort. They harvest baby parts and sell them. We now know that. But the partial birth abortion thing, it turned it around on her. And she didn't have a denial, and the drive-bys aren't talking about it. And it's things like that in a debate. You'll never hear any public reaction, no polling on it, but could have a huge impact. We'll never know. We won't know until the election. Here, one more. I got to go to break. Let me take a break so I have a little bit more time on the other side. Be right back, folks. Don't go away. Let me ask you a question. Why do we have early voting? Seriously, why do we have it? We already have absentee voting. If you're not going to be around on Election Day, you vote absentee. Why do we have early voting? Whose idea was that? And what's its purpose? What's... So we've already got, what do you mean to help the elderly? We've already got absentee ballots. Why do you need early voting? I mean, it's just as inconvenient to vote early as it is absentee. We already have absentee ballots. You can't show up that day. Or if Roland Martin's standing in line, you can't get around him. then there's all kinds of other things you can do. You can do absentee voting. Why early voting? What the hell is that? Where's early voting mentioned in the Constitution? And by the way, where's it written in the Constitution that the loser has to automatically concede for the sake of the Constitution? Where does it say that in the Constitution? Doesn't say that in the Constitution? Really? Is that right? Here's Trump. This is, they had barely come to grips with the fact that he's out there calling illegal immigrant bad guys hombres. And then, soundbite number 22, then he had to say this. Chris Wallace, will you, as president, consider a grand bargain? A deal. Wait a minute. A deal that includes both tax increases and benefits cuts to try to save both programs, Social Security, Medicare.
That's part of my commitment to raise taxes on the wealthy. My Social Security payroll contribution will go up, as will Donald's, assuming he can't figure out how to get out of it. But what we want to do is to replenish the Social Security Trust Fund.
Such a nasty woman. She is a nasty woman. You know, why are we not allowed to say that just because she's a woman? We're not allowed to criticize Obama because of his race. And I thought feminism made us all the same. We're all equal. Everybody's a tough guy now. So why can't we criticize women? She's a nasty woman. She is a nasty woman. And by the way, this is another area here on this. When this entitlements question came up, to me, this was one of the biggest hanging curveballs that Trump missed. And I don't even think he swung at it. Is not the current situation, condition, Social Security and Medicare, is that not a classic example of how the establishment, our betters, the elites, have totally screwed something up? And how many campaigns of your life have you heard candidates of both parties promise a fix for the Social Security system? And everybody's got a plan. Every damned candidate has had a plan. And yet it remains unfunded, biggest part of the budget, no end in sight, no solution has ever worked. If there's anything that justifies the candidacy of an outsider to fix one of the biggest messes in this nation's budget, it's these two entitlement programs. And she is Exhibit A for being disqualified, if you ask me. Let me check this alert here. Rain within 5 minutes. Big deal. Greetings. We're inside, not going outside, doesn't matter. Welcome back, folks. One more bit of commentary on the debate, and then back to your phones. And this is early on in the debate, a question on the Supreme Court and nominees. And it was classic. Now, Trump's answer was great. Trump's answer was related to and focused on the Constitution and the original intent of the founders. And he retreated to a safety zone, which is the Second Amendment, which was good because she really doesn't have much to say on it. Democrats are between a rock and a hard place, and they hate the Second Amendment. They want to get rid of it. But if they come out and say that, they will lose elections. So they have to lie, as Hillary did last night. I'm for the Second Amendment. I've been upstate in New York, and I've seen those weird things these guys use when they hunt, and I'm not opposed to that, but the Heller decision and toddlers in Washington, and I protected children, and I think it's horrible, and toddlers have nothing to do with the Heller decision, D.C., not about children, not about toddlers. Toddlers, the word's not mentioned. Trump didn't know. Could have nuked it. But before that, when Hillary described, in answer to the pregunta from the debate hombre, El Cristo Wallace, about the kind of judges she looks for, she didn't define judge. She listed the qualifications for a community organizer. She listed the qualifications for a social agitator, a social justice warrior. this was one of those occasions where even though this was one of his best answers, he could have blown her out of the water and been educational at the same time. Here is what Mrs. Clinton said. Crooked Hillary said, when we talk about the Supreme Court, fake smile, it really raises the central issue in this election, namely, what kind of country are we going to be? No. Well, she's right about that, actually, but not the way she means. What kind of opportunities will we provide our citizens? The Supreme Court's not about that. The Supreme Court is the law, and their cases are not about opportunities being provided for our citizens. What kind of rights will Americans have? We already have them. I mean, they are enumerated. And then there are rights that Mrs. Clinton doesn't like. American people have too many rights. There's too much freedom. Government doesn't have enough rights in her mind. Government's too limited. Constitution limits the government way, way, way too much. And I feel strongly that, fake smile, the Supreme Court needs to stand on the side of the American people, not on the side of the powerful corporations and the wealthy. Now, sadly, this characterization of the purpose of the court has been bought by way too many ignorant, low-information American citizens, because it sounds good. Class warfare always sounds good. Taking action against the rich and the powerful and making them pay for what they do. It always sounds good. But that's not the job of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, standing on the side of the American people, Supreme Court adjudicates the law. Supreme Court determines the constitutionality of things and other things. It's in fact, the Supreme Court's gotten way out of focus, in my opinion. That's for another day. My point here is that she went on to say, for me, that means that we need a Supreme Court that'll stand up on behalf of women's rights, on behalf of the rights of the LGBT community, that'll stand up and say no to Citizens United, a decision that has undermined the election system in our country because of the way it permits dark, unaccountable money to come into our system. She's not only using that money, she has been accused of illegally coordinating with that money. Citizens United equals super PACs, essentially, and it allows people that used to not be able to contribute on the basis that money is speech. And the Democrats do not like free speech. And that's not an exaggeration. My friends, it is not an exaggeration, and it's not an attempt to go overboard to get your attention with something. It's not an attempt to be outraged. They do not like free speech. They do not like criticism. Citizens United was the reason she hates it is because central to it was a movie that was funded by donations from certain people that was critical of her. She doesn't think the movie should have been made, and you shouldn't have seen it. And she thinks the government ought to have the power to eliminate. They go after Trump, saying he wants to expand libel laws. Mrs. Clinton and the Democrat Party want to limit what you can say. Now, they can't because of the free speech clause in the First Amendment, which is very clear. The government shall make no law abridging freedom of speech. And it literally is about political speech. You can say anything you want about politics, a candidate, and the government cannot stop you. And they hate that. Since they can't go after speech, they go after proxies for speech. And the number one proxy for speech is money. Money equals speech. People get together and they donate to organizations so that a pile of money can be used to create a message that can be broadcast en masse as part of a political campaign. It's entirely legal. The Supreme Court said so in Citizens United. Money equals speech. The Democrats, since they can't eliminate speech, they couldn't succeed at that. No, even the low information crowd would stand up and oppose that. But going after proxies, going after substitutes for speech, money, particularly when you're going after the rich and the powerful. While she's in bed with them, making speeches to them, they're paying her $250,000 to $350,000 for 20-minute speeches. She nevertheless goes public and condemns them and criticizes them when she doesn't really mean it. They are the lifeblood of her campaign. The banks and all these big-time rich people from Hollywood, Silicon Valley, you name it, are the mother's milk of her campaign. They are the money. She just doesn't want Trump to have it or any other Republican to have it or any average citizen to be able to bundle his money with other people's money and create an ad or a campaign. So instead of going after speech, they go after proxies for speech, and money is the number one proxy. And the third thing they did to eliminate free speech is use the IRS to deny Tea Party groups tax-exempt status to raise money to spend on message-driven campaigns. And that's how they attack free speech. But when you look at this in total, we need a court that stands up for gays, for women's, for transgenders. That's not the purpose. The Supreme Court is not about social justice. The Supreme Court's not about social warfare. The Supreme Court's not about the implementation of the Democrat Party agenda. The Supreme Court is about the Constitution. It is about constitutionality. It is about the law. At its bare simplest, it's about the law. It is not about the Democrat Party agenda. But that's what it's become. The whole judiciary has become that, because that's the kind of people they have put on various courts as judges. And every liberal justice on the Supreme Court is a social justice warrior first and a judge of the law second. And if they get one more, then they will have effectively corrupted the Supreme Court. If they get another Elena Kagan, there's no business being there. If they get another Senorita Sotomayor, if they get another Breyer, who may be one of the absolute worst, Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg, if they get another one of these, then we don't have a Supreme Court, folks. You know as well as I do, people already think the court is there to become the final word on controversial political questions. So everybody looks to the Supreme Court as the final word on abortion or immigration or what have you. That's not what it's for. It was never intended to be such. It's just another institution that has been corrupted and is facing total corruption, depending on the outcome of this election. Here is Mary in Hamden, Connecticut. I'm really glad you waited. I appreciate your patience. Hi.
Oh, no problem, Rush. Thank you so much for having me on.
You bet.
I wanted to talk about something I think you mentioned briefly, but not many people are talking about the fact that Hillary divulged a national top-secret information by giving our nuclear response time on live television during the debate.
Mm-hmm.
I know a couple of articles have been written about it where people are speculating, basically, and, doing an analysis, trying to figure out about how long it would take. But to my knowledge, it has never been actually known what that time frame was. And Hillary is not a reporter. She's not somebody who did some research and is hypothesizing. She was Secretary of State and one of the few people that would have that information.
She killed bin Laden. She killed bin Laden while Trump was out there building buildings with Chinese steel.
Oh, yeah, I know. She was carrying the gun, too,
right.
wasn't she?
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure she did that single-handedly.
Obama was in a golf course. She killed bin Laden.
Oh, my God. Well, all the more reason that her saying that means a lot more than some obscure written article by some newspaper hack that not many people see.
Well,
millions of people heard the Secretary of State give our response time.
Well, it turns out this has been fact-checked, Mary, by Snopes.com. By the way, all the fact-checkers have been proven corrupt. The fact-checkers. are part of the Democrat Party, the media coalition with the Democrat Party. Snopes.com says that this is not true, and they find some radical peacenik who founded something called Plowshares, who tweeted that it's widely known that it takes 4 minutes to spin a nuke response off. This is not a secret. We've known this for a long time. So Snopes says, well, these fact checkers, Hillary didn't divulge anything that we haven't known for a long time. It takes 4 minutes from the time the order is given to spin something up and be able to launch a missile, submarine, what have you. I've never heard it. And whether it's known or not, it's kind of haphazard to have it just cavalierly announced like this, especially within the context that Trump, unqualified to make the call on something like this. You know, Donna Brazile could have maybe used LifeLock. Russians out there hacking Roland Martin and stuff, getting her questions and passing it on to Hillary and so forth. Yeah, you never know. Anyway, folks, that's it for another busy, exciting broadcast day from the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. The nation's most listened to network and program. Only one program on the network. Can only handle one, and it's mine. Open Line Friday tomorrow. So thank you, and we will see you then.